Good evening and welcome to 44 CISEx Friday. Today, theme is investment climate in IT, and we have quite a good lineup. So with us is going to be Tomislav Car from Infinum, Sumina from Nanobit, Ivan Jelušić from Orqe, and this time we have two ambassadors. We have His Excellency Robert Kohorst, the US Ambassador to Croatia, and His Excellency Andrew Dalgleish, the British Ambassador. Let me just share my screen for a second and show you a couple of things. So I'll just review a little bit about numbers. So Croatian IT and the part of the IT that is doing the export is growing like crazy. So we, as the association, professional association, represent about quarter to 1/3 of the Croatian IT in terms of the revenue and employees. We have about 7,000 employees, about 4 billion kunas, which is around 600 million euros. The export is 270, and as you can see from those numbers, the one that is growing much faster than the rest. And last year we did 65 millions of investments in R&D, which actually represents 1/3 of all the R&D investments in Croatia. The big question was what's going to happen with Croatian IT and the export sector. And Tajana did two analyses, one before the summer and one just like a week ago, and it was published a few days ago. So in terms of IT, overall IT, we see that we have projection that the number of employees will grow about 10%. The revenue will go up 9%, and what is the most amazing thing to everybody, given that we're all grounded and we don't travel anywhere, the export is still growing 24%. That projection is still not for the members of CISEx, but is in progress, and it will be finished in about 10 days, and we'll publish the results. But I expect the results will be pretty much the same. If you're following the news, these are just a couple of news points from past couple of months. The biggest story is, of course, Infobip, and we are sorry that we don't have them with us tonight, but they are very, very busy with this latest news. They just acquired one US company for $300 million. So actually we are living in a country where IT companies are acquiring US companies for $300 million. If somebody told me that a few months ago, it would be a dream, but it's happening. That's not the only one. So we also have Infinum that made the huge splash with joint invention with Porsche Digitalom. And we have Tomislav Car tonight that is going to talk about it. And the biggest, largest ever Croatian exit, Sumina, Nanobit, Croatian game company acquired for over $100 million. So these are all huge news a couple of months back. This gives us a good opportunity to see where we stand and to actually talk about very important part of the business, and this is getting investment. So as I said, we have Tomislav Car from Infinum, we have Sumina from Nanobit, and we have young rising star Ivan Jelušić from Orqe, and they're going to share their perspective, a little bit different because they are in different stage of the progress and life of their companies. And we also have two, I would say, the most important ambassadors in Croatia that's going to give us some of the insights of what they're working on right now. And they're going to give us some insight of how they, as the foreigners, see us, especially the IT sector. So without further ado, I will start with Tomislav. Just a second. Tomislav is CEO in Infinum. Very, very successful Croatian company. And just recently, they made the big splash in the news with their joint venture with Porsche Digitalom. So Tomislav, welcome. And please, if you can tell us a few words about how it come that you accepted this investment. I mean, you have a running very successful company, have very comfortable life, I would say. Why to go to all that trouble to get more money, to have more work to do?
Hi there, and thanks for everybody for having me. First, thank you for thinking that I have a comfortable life. That's very, very nice of you. So yeah, I mean, I think probably most people have seen the news because it was all over the news, mostly because of that, and then the follow-up when Alan and me went to the TV show, and then everybody was like making memes out of our faces. So everybody heard about that. So yeah, so I mean, the whole cooperation just came to be because Porsche was looking at like different locations where to expand their, let's say, network and offices. And I mean, they have different offices, obviously in Germany, but then US, Israel, China, etc. And they were looking, you know, at other potential locations. And you know, they found out about us through Rimac, through Mate, basically because they have a stake in Rimac Automobili, I think 15% or something like that. And you know, we started talking, and kind of the idea of the joint venture just came up organically, I would say. I mean, for one part, you know, I'm a car guy. I really like the opportunity of working with a major brand like Porsche, especially on sports cars. And so that was very interesting for me and for all of us. But then also the other aspect of actually bringing a brand like that to Croatia, opening up something here, bringing the knowledge, bringing even the people. So, you know, we have some people that will probably come over. Some people are coming over from Germany. So, you know, like all these different things that we can do with that. So that was kind of interesting for us. And, you know, we set like a target, you know, let's try to build this up to a size of about 100 people in, you know, whatever, 3 years is the general idea. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, you know, this is not fixed, could be more, could be less, who knows. And the idea is to work on various Porsche products in the software domain. So it could be anything related to, let's say, online car sales, so something the customer sees, mobile related to Porsche products, or it could be something related to more like the back office, what actually the company uses inside. So like, these are all different ideas. And I mean, the question we get very often, and I think it's maybe relevant for this audience here, is like, why did you make a separate company? Why not, I don't know, Infinum does it as a client or something like that? And like, it's just the type of cooperation that I guess they wanted and we wanted. So on one hand, Infinum is already a successful company with like completely different clients and completely different stuff I mean, not completely different, it's still software, but it's just the client base is, you know, diverse. There's various industries, that type of thing. And this is like tailored to a single industry, specifics, things like more specific, I would say, around data analytics, machine learning, some of these things. It just made sense to kind of make it as a separate entity and do it as a partnership or joint venture. So yeah, and I think, you know, for me, I think I love the opportunity of like just learning new things through that. And, you know, because you're working with like one of the high-end brands in automotive, and you can like learn a lot from that.
Okay, thank you for introduction. We'll go to one introduction questions to everybody. Whoever is listening to right now, you can ask questions. We have a Q&A window in Zoom, so please ask a question and I will forward them to our panelists. Okay, so the next person is Alan Sumina, CEO of Nanobit. And this is really inspiring, the story. This is the first big exit in Croatia with over 100 million. So my first question to Alan would be, how do you know it's a good time to stop? I mean, how do you break down that, like you're having a very successful company, and at some point you say, okay, now it's a good time to do the exit? Because I know you had offers before and you would have some offers down the line for sure. So how do you make that decision?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and good evening to everyone. Well, it's a very tough question because it's never a good time. And when the business goes in the right direction, right, you usually don't want to sell. You want to sell when things are not going as planned, but then you cannot sell because nobody wants to. So it's, I would say it's a combination of factors. So first of all is that we decided to find a strategical partner which will take the company to the next level. When I say next level, I mean not just in the terms of the money and financing, I mean more in the terms of the know-how and knowledge that we currently lack here in Croatia. Because I think around 95% of our employees are local, and it is very hard to find talent and to bring them to Croatia. So we decided that maybe partnering with some bigger name, we could get this know-how which could further impact our growth. That's one of the factors. The second one is we said ourselves that we'll review every offer that we get that's about $100 million. So we set ourselves internal benchmarks that that are relevant for us as a founders, because as you know, the Nanobit has never raised any money from VC capital. So the whole decision is quite straightforward. It's just between two of us, two founders. And we decided that we will discuss about every offer around or about $100 million. And we got this offer, and we talked with the Stillfront Group, the partner that wanted us to acquire us, and they seemed like a good fit. But you said when it's a good time to stop. I don't see this as a complete exit or a stop, because out of the whole package, we got one part of it in cash, one part of it in the stocks of the buying company. And with our growth and our plans, we can impact that stock, because the company that acquired us, it's not so big company that whatever we do, it doesn't have any kind of impact on their revenues or EBITDAs, right? So it's not like we completely stop doing anything when we handed over the company. And the third thing is that part of this whole purchase price is the earnout that we'll get after 2 years. So I would say it's more like a partnership and partial exit. So yeah, I hope this answers your question.
For now, I have a few more, but let's move on and do the introduction first. Okay. As I said, the next person, Ivan Jelušić, really rising stars, 30 under 30. In a recent interview, I saw there was on Facebook, the Prime Minister of Austria was showing off the Hofburg with a video taken by using the Orqe goggles. So these are goggles that you put on your eyes, obviously, and you have first-person view from drones and whatever else. So a very exciting hardware company, very fast-growing, very interesting. I would say the leader in the world in technology that you're developing. And I know that you are raising money, and you're raising money seed round as a very fast-growing young company during the COVID times. So can you share me a little bit more about your experience and how the whole thing is progressing?
Thanks a lot. Just for the starters, I would like to briefly explain what is our company and what we actually do. I think you provided a good example. But we are a technology company making high definition video travel super fast. That fast that you can control drone or autonomous car over large distances. So our fundraising story was slightly different than the usual when it comes to hardware companies, especially in this area. We started 5 years ago as a hardware agency, where we helped hardware startups all over the world to bring their ideas from something that was sketched on a paper to something that is manufactured in thousands of pieces. And we used all of the profits that we made from agency business to grow our capacity and know-how to be able to do stuff that we would eventually spin off in a separate company and act as a startup. So we started 5 years ago as an agency, and over time we became a technology startup focusing on technologies that can transport high definition video super fast. We bootstrapped for a long time. Then after our successful Kickstarter campaign and release of our first product to the market, we raised a pretty big angel round from a series of angel investors, some from Croatia, some from Spain, some from Australia, Estonia. I think it's a list of 12 angel investors that have put almost close to $400,000 US in our angel round. Just after raising angel round, we went to start raising a seed round, and we are this close to finally close this financing round. Yeah, I think of course, you always plan to close those rounds faster than it usually happens, but there were some objective reasons due to COVID, and everything just slowed down a little bit. But I'm very happy that we are super close to finally closing this round and then focusing on level up. So that's a long story short. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was muted, obviously. Thank you. We'll move on. We'll come back to you and everybody else soon with the questions. Let me introduce you my next panelist, and that's His Excellency Robert Kohorst. Two news recently, which is like mind-blowing again. First one is double taxation. So we do have a proposal about doing double taxation treaty with the United States, which is really a big issue for doing the investments both ways. And the second one is also maybe not that relevant due right now because of the COVID, but as soon as things go back into normal, traveling to US without visa, this ambassador will be remembered in this country for sure. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Ambassador to United States, US Ambassador to Croatia, His Excellency Robert Kohorst. I think you're on mute.
There we go.
Yeah.
Technology problem.
You're welcome.
Thanks for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to be here. As many of you may know, I've only been an ambassador for almost 3 years, and prior to that, I was in business. I've been an angel investor. I've raised money from investors, so I know what a lot of you go through and how difficult it is to start something from scratch and raise money from investors and figure out when to exit. It's very complex. It's also extraordinarily exciting to be an entrepreneur. So anyway, so I appreciate what you do. I also want to note that the U.S. is very active in Croatia in terms of investing. At times we don't get credit for it, but we have more than 150 U.S. companies invest here, and their turnover last year was more than $22.5 billion of sales, with profits of more than 450 billion kuna. So 450 million kuna, sorry. So there's a lot of business going on here, and we're going to try and enhance it through the two things that Davor mentioned. First of all, the double tax treaty. Croatia is now in the midst of negotiating that treaty. There is the next round of the negotiation is the week of December 7th. It should be the final round. There's only a few paragraphs that are still in dispute. I think that will be easily resolved. The next step is to then translate the document into Croatian, which we hope won't take long, but that's a mechanical step. And then it's ready to sign. Once it's signed, it then goes to our Senate for approval. So it's probably 6 months before the treaty goes in place, but everything's moving forward. Treasury's enthusiastic. Obviously, the Croatian government's enthusiastic, and this will get done. On the visa waiver program, we made a big push to get the refusal rate below 3%. Croatia stepped up and did the steps. They are doing all the mechanical documents now. There are a number of agreements need to be done, passenger name recognition agreements and anti-terrorist kind of agreements. Those are all being negotiated. And but for COVID, it would not have surprised me we'd finish this year, before the end of the year. But it's going to be at least another 3 months because of the delays with COVID. We've got to get people from Homeland Security here to verify the procedures. But it's also a lot of enthusiasm on both sides, and it's going to happen in the near term. So we're really happy about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's move on, and we'll come back later, of course. And my final panelist is quite well-known ambassador, very active in business and social life in Croatia, Andrew Dalgleish. And I found, of course, a lot of news about him. But the most exciting one for me, he's like really involved and especially involved in IT. So when he's giving interviews, he's talking about how he's learning Croatian language, but doing the practice in Rimac Automobili. So without further ado, thank you for joining us. And please, can you tell us a little bit more about this, the whole new situation that we have right now, anticipate to have right now with the Brexit, and how this will affect our relationship with UK, because many Croatian IT companies are actually headquartered in London. Quite a few, actually.
Yeah, that's right, Davor. There is a rich relationship between the UK and Croatia, particularly in the IT sector. There's a lot of exchange that goes on, and there's a lot of business that Croatians find to do in London, raising capital, meeting people, finding investors. The relationship will change. That's the point of Brexit. It doesn't really matter whether you like it or you don't like it. It's been decided, it is happening, and so the relationship will change. But excuse me a moment. The key point is that there will still be a relationship. We will still be having a discussion together. It will just be the mechanics in which we do it that will be different. So I'm quite excited about finding opportunities to work together to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna switch to the questions from the audience. So we have the first one. It's for Ivan, but I think it's relevant for everybody else. Did you close the angel round as a Croatian entity? And if yes, how complicated was it to go through with it, especially with the foreign angel investors?
So our company's headquarters are here in Croatia, but we do have a holding company in Ireland and a company in the United States. We finalized our angel round in our holding company. And the reason why that didn't happen in Croatian company was lack of regulation to implement certain stock option mechanics within Croatian law. So in essence, we switched our jurisdiction to Ireland after realizing that implementation of stock option plan would be either difficult or close to impossible at given time frame and situation. So yeah, that's my answer to your question.
Thanks. Alan, I know you, just to continue on this question is, I know that you have implemented as a Croatian company employee stock option plan. So how did that go? Because there are a lot of confusing information about the subject, how difficult it is. So I know that you have quite good information firsthand.
Yeah, it is quite difficult because I think we are the first one company in Croatia that actually executed the plan. So it's different when you implement the idea around the plan, and it's quite different when you actually want to execute it, because nobody knows even from the accounting perspective how some things are supposed to go. So it was quite, I would say, we agreed on the price and the terms of the contract and everything in like 2 or 3 weeks. But we had ongoing discussion for almost 2 months around the stock option plan because of the certain uncertainties around taxation, around accounting, and how will this all be actually executed, right? So yeah, I agree with Ivan. Some countries have much better regulation around the stock option plan, and in our particular case, the stock option plan was one of the things which I didn't sleep at night during the negotiation with our buyer. So yeah, it is quite complicated to do it through the Croatian entity. It is much more complicated than I first thought. And to be honest, I would never do it again through the Croatian entity.
Okay, thank you. I have another question for Alan again. So what is the main thing to pay attention when somebody wants to buy you? What are like the difficult things? What would you say?
Everything is difficult. it really depends how big the company is, because for smaller companies, some things simply don't matter at all. And for the bigger ones, almost everything matters. In our particular case, there was ongoing discussion around the governing law. For example, almost every bigger transaction in Croatia is governed by UK, not necessarily UK law, but in our particular case, it was UK law, because the Swedish entity was buying us, and the UK was considered as a neutral entity, in a neutral ground in these negotiations. So that's one thing, the governing law. Then I think that you need to have everything quite structured and in place before due diligence, right? Because due diligence is extremely tiresome process for the sellers, us, right? And for the people that are working on the deal, because every single thing that pops out during the due diligence can potentially block the deal. Or on the other hand, it can, the buyer can require additional securities around the I don't know, potential tax impact of some things they found out during the due diligence. So that's just two things, but there are ongoing list of things which are important. But I think that we were quite good, that we were structured as a very fine company, and we accomplished to close the deal in less than 2 months, which is almost a record, because usually these things can last for 2 years.
So I guess you were like quite well prepared for it.
We were prepared, but we were working with the professionals, you know, because for us on our side, it worked the investment bank from the UK, which the guys who were doing our deal, they sold like 15 companies in the last couple of years. So they are professionals. They know how to do the deal. They know how to close the deal, which is also even more important. And also we had very good attorneys also from the UK, which have very relevant experience from the tech sector and the gaming sector. So yeah.
If I may add, there's one very good lesson to be learned from Alan's experience, and something that we are going through right now. Some things you need to set straight from the beginning, because they will catch you sometimes in a later round, or they will be super expensive to implement later on, or to revert some clauses that you put in or sign either by mistake or by lack of knowledge or experience. So I think investing in legal capacity during fundraising and execution of M&A round is highly critical for the company and for the founders in the end.
Thanks. I have a question for Tomislav about joint venture. How complicated is the process, especially if you have a company in Croatia and you're doing the joint venture with a company from abroad?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, when you talk about the joint venture, so there are basically two things to talk about. So one is how complicated is it from a legal Croatian aspect, and how complicated is it from a business aspect in terms of like the deal that you make with whoever you're making it with. So the Croatian aspect actually wasn't complicated. I don't know if we ran into any problems. I don't think it's basically, you know, two companies own a company, so it's not that typical scenario. From the business aspect, now that's where it gets complicated to actually negotiate whatever you want to negotiate, and then you draft this up in this joint venture agreement, and basically that process is kind of difficult. So the way that we did it is that we try to agree upon the most important stuff, the business stuff, without kind of getting the legal part, the lawyers in there too early in the process. Just because, you know, if we don't agree on the way of working and what's going to happen, then it's really, and obviously legal always slows down everything. So that's how we did it, and it turned out pretty good. The entire process lasted, I mean, we started end of last year, so I think it was like November or something, December, And we basically agreed on everything in like a couple of months, but to get the whole paperwork and everything done, it's basically like 9 months or something like that. And
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No, it's in my mind that's what I expected in the beginning, just because it's a gigantic company, and it's generally Porsche Digital is part of Porsche AG, which is part of VW Group, which is part of Porsche Holding, which is a stock, blah blah blah. So it's a lot of stuff going on there, and just kind of sort through that. It takes time.
Okay, I have.
Can I make a comment about the joint venture?
Yes, please.
Sure. My experience is that in negotiating joint venture agreements, it's very important to focus on the unraveling of the venture when it doesn't work, because they don't always work. And if you don't have a clear exit strategy that you've thought about up front, you're going to wind up in litigation, and your life will be miserable for years.
That's a very good comment, and I can't speak to details on that, but yes, part of the whole joint venture agreement is exactly that.
Okay, thank you. I have one question for both ambassadors, especially given they are outside of EU, or soon to be outside of the EU. So the question is about the participation and involvement of the government in investing in early stage companies like startups. So I know, for example, in UK, there is a SEIS scheme where basically investors get a tax deduction when they invest in startup and early stage companies, and the government pretty much, that's the involvement that's on their side. And as a result, there's a lot of angel investors, networks, VCs, and the whole industry about how to put more money and grow more companies. And actually government is supporting it through the taxes. In EU lately, we really see more and more of bureaucratic process of government trying to choose the best branches of IT, or which companies are the most likely to succeed, and then try to get some funding into them. And how do you see that the whole process, and in general, what do you think about it?
Yeah, you described very well, Davor, the UK approach, which is basically to create the space in which businesses can succeed and fail, because they're not all going to succeed. But you need to remove as many barriers as possible from the process of running your business. And that is how we tend to encourage investment and development in the UK. We're not really interested in trying to back winners, because history shows that we tend to get that wrong when we've done that in the last century. We always pick the wrong guys, and we pour money into it, and then we lose the money. So we're more about creating the right business environment. And I think picking up the points that Tomislav and Ivan were making earlier, and Alan too, on the one hand, there's the government environment, which is back off, make space. And then there's, what are you surrounded by? And you're surrounded by legal expertise, you're surrounded by venture capital, angel investors. There are many reasons why doing business in the UK is interesting, not just because of the intervention or lack of intervention by government, but because of a whole range of environmental issues that make it a good place to be. But from the government's point of view, basically, the less we can do to get in your way, the better.
Thank you.
I would say from the United States side, our government is not actively involved in encouraging or discouraging investments. We have regular tax laws in certain areas where we have investment tax credits and some tax advantages, but overall the government doesn't encourage or discourage. Our basic focus has been in protecting investors, and particularly small investors. So we have Securities and Exchange Commission, which insists on disclosure, and that disclosure is very detailed. If you bring in small investors, if you bring in wealthier, sophisticated investors, the disclosures, they let the investor take care of themselves, and they will insist on disclosures. So that mechanism of protecting investors through disclosure is our main involvement by the government.
Thank you, and actually have a follow-up question for you. So do you expect a significant increase of Croatian companies opening headquarters or a subsidiary in the US if the double taxation treaty finally goes through? And if yes, do you have any advice for them?
You know, I don't know. There are certainly some that have mentioned to me that they're interested, that they're hurt by the double tax. but I don't really have a list of companies that are waiting for that solution to be resolved. So I really don't know or have any great advice. Sorry.
I mean, only thing that, just to follow up, that I know that most companies really are trying to get from Europe to US to get access to much bigger market and much bigger valuations. So there are just a couple of weeks ago, there were examples of two companies, one UK, one US, with a pretty much similar balance sheet and revenues in the same kind of business. One raising in US 10 times more money with 10 times bigger valuation. And of course, it's much easier to win on the market if you have that much weight behind you. So I expect quite a lot of companies looking into the US market.
Yeah, I would think that'll mostly be the small and medium size. I think the very large companies are able to structure around the double tax problems with affiliates or subsidiaries in other countries that have tax treaties with the US. But it should open it up for the smaller guy who can't afford to go through all the cost of the additional layer of companies to avoid the double tax.
Yeah, thank you. The follow-up question for Andrew, what is the best route to market for Croatian tech companies in the UK? I mean, how easy, difficult is to raise funds, if you know anything about it?
It's a well-trodden path. A lot of Croatian companies have, they don't need to go to the UK to learn how to do IT. They know that, you know, you Croatians, you've got that talent. They go to the UK to raise capital and to learn how to build a business. And there are many people, so I would say talk to the guys around you. There's a lot of know-how here in Croatia on how to do that. But you have tech hubs, you have areas of expertise in the UK that are designed to coach and to bring on and to provide centers of excellence for working very easily with your company. And we welcome that investment. The great thing about the UK is that you can incorporate yourself, you can set up a company in about 24 hours. It's really, really easy to do. And once you've done that, then doors open and you can start to meet people. But don't hesitate, whoever asked that question, if they want to get in touch with my embassy, Davor, you can provide the details. I'd be more than happy to talk in more detail.
Sorry, thank you. Again, a question for you as ambassador this time. You're quite popular here, I guess. What is the framework that you use to evaluate teams when you're doing angel investing?
Oh, the only issue that's important is the quality of the people. Are you dealing with people you trust, who are smart, who are hardworking? And if you have good people, then you go to the good idea, then you look at the business model. But if you don't have good people, I don't care how good the idea seems on paper.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think the point that you brought up, which is also really good, is like that you trust them. So I would say integrity. That's like great point to actually make. So. And
I'll emphasize, one of the things I've learned by making mistakes, by having bad partners and being in lawsuits over companies over the years, is you want to surround yourself with good people, not just your new investors. Make sure you like your employees. Make sure you like your bankers. Make sure you like your vendors. Treat everybody like they're a partner. And if you have good partners in all aspects of your business, life will be a lot easier.
Thank you. One question, I guess, for all. Is there a big difference between investment in B2B or B2C focused companies?
I think we have a product that is addressing both B2C and B2B, and I would say that is, of course, it's more difficult to get investment in B2C company, especially coming from this region than B2B. And reason why is we're coming from a super small market, and you can't make significant revenue from your domestic market. So this is why when thinking about consumer companies, we need to start, we need to think globally from day one when coming from Croatia. In B2B, I think there's more room for companies from this region to scale. So I'd say that B2B companies have greater chances of getting funding if they come from Croatia or this region.
Tomislav, maybe you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, so the question is like, is there a difference between investments in B2B and B2C focused companies? And, you know, there is to a certain extent. I have some experience in both, I would say, you know, running the B2B businesses that I do, and then the B2C where like Circuit Mess with Albert, and then we have B2B, we have Productive and Infinuma, which are B2B businesses basically. And, you know, B2B businesses are maybe easier to bootstrap than B2C businesses. Just because of the marketing costs are to a certain, like you can, in B2B, you can basically make something, sell it, kind of use it. With B2C, it really depends on what you're building. If it's like a hardware business, then the costs, you know, like what Ivan does, your cost might ramp up for like stock and that type of thing, where you actually, you know, you need a lot of like upfront. Or like what Alan does with games, I'm sure he can say more about that, but like there's this big initial cost, and like you can't do anything until you build the whole thing. But then the market is also bigger, so there's a certain difference there, I would say. Yeah. But
Alan has a very good story. So when I'm teaching at university, he's my guest lecturer, and for 1 hour he just like shortly explaining how difficult it was to build this company. This was not easy. But we don't really have time for the whole story tonight. But I do have a couple of questions for Alan. The first one is, did you get acquisition offers before? Why did you decide to accept this one? And the second follow-up question is, when you are starting personal investment fund?
Okay, so interesting questions. Regarding the first one, we basically got acquisition offers every single year for the past 5 years. And why did we accept this one? Well, for a start, we got the offer from a partner that we want to do deal with, right? I mean, the partner who seemed like a great fit for our company and for the culture that we have in our company. And I think that's extremely important. Like the ambassador said, that it's very important to be surrounded with the people who you want to work with, right? And we found in those people in the Stillfront group, people that we want to work with, right? And they were of course other offers. To be completely honest, even during the negotiation process, we got one offer from a private equity fund. The offer was actually, the valuation of the company was even bigger than the valuation that we got from the Stillfront, but yet still we decided to go with this one partner. So I think it's a combination of culture, fit, and everything. But it's also, I think that how the whole deal is structured. I said a little bit around this. I mean, the whole information about the deal is public, so you can see it online. It's not something that I'm disclosing, something that's a company secret or everything. But we can really make a difference to the stock of the company that acquired us. And that's very motivating for us as a founders and for the team. So it's not like that we are bought and now that's it, end of the life, and start doing something else. So because we really didn't want to do a complete exit. We are still all quite young, eager to do and to accomplish great things. So that's the answer to the question. And the second one was when I'm planning to start my private investment fund. Well, to be honest,
Yes.
My contract forbids me to do investments in some competing projects, or like the computer games or mobile apps. So for a certain time, right? So I cannot do that, I think in the next 2 or 3 years. But after that, we'll see. Sorry?
you can buy a winery or like an olive.
Yeah, I can do investments in some other areas. Yeah, that's
Yeah, we'll talk. Thank you. I have another question for Andrew. Do you have any words of reassurance for those Croatian companies that are still looking to open the headquarters subsidiaries in the UK despite Brexit?
Yeah, I would say I don't think I really need to give too much reassurance, I hope, because it's not so much in spite of Brexit, it's because of Brexit. We will be as anxious as we always have been to make it easy to do business with the UK. So it's too easy, if you like, to compress into the same idea the UK leaving the European Union with the UK closing down and shutting itself off from the world. That's just not true. We will be as enthusiastic as we have ever been about being able to do business. So Croatian companies shouldn't hesitate. Whatever mechanisms are different because of the different relationship with the European Union, there is still a phenomenal amount of capital in the UK looking for investment. That's not going to go away. That is there to stay. So Croatian companies should be getting engaged and looking at the opportunities in that.
Thank you. I have another question for US Ambassador. In the case of Croatian and US co-founders in the US-based company, does upcoming double tax treaty makes all of them equally treated from a tax perspective in case of future exit, or US co-founder are still in a better position? So somebody is just in the process of forming such entity. So
I'm not sure I understand the specifics of it. The point of the double tax treaty is that you don't pay tax both on profits in the United States and tax on those same profits in Croatia. It eliminates that. It doesn't eliminate paying the tax at least one place. And I suspect the tax is paid where the business is primarily done, not where the ownership is.
Okay, and in case of exit, well, anyway, somebody needs to get some text.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
To answer that question, I would not. But thank you. For Ivan, I have another question. What was the most challenging aspect of closing the investment round?
I think at some point it was complexity of the whole thing. Like there are many different aspects that need to fall in place before the round is closed. And I primarily think about due diligence process. And as Alan mentioned, like during the acquisition process, similar to closing funds, closing investment phase, due diligence is pretty stressful thing for a company. And I would say that, I'm sorry, Davor, can you, I lost it for a second. Can you please repeat the question?
Well, the question was like the most difficult thing in closing the round.
Yeah, it's again, I think it's understanding all the legal wording in proposed term sheets and investment material. And for me, it was like something that I was not able to understand, but our company is lucky enough that our CEO is actually investment professional with 20+ years of experience in running sovereign wealth funds and doing investments in millions and millions in transactions. So that helped quite a lot. But for a young startup founder closing its first round or second round, I think that the most critical part is to be able to understand the legal wording of the stuff where you're signing your investment. And I remember during our angel round, we were in discussions with the VC fund that didn't have high integrity on explaining what are the certain facts and wordings in legal documents following the round. And I remember when we figured out that this wording is not what it actually is being suggested that it is, we got very, very pissed. So that was a lesson learned, like read it twice, read it third time. If you don't understand it, then give it to someone who's able to understand it, because there's no backseas after you put your signature on the paper. And I think that's a quite important lesson. If you don't understand it, don't sign it. And if you need to sign it, ask someone who understands that wording, and don't put your ink before you fully understand the wording in documents. So that would be my answer.
Thank you. I have one question for Ambassador and one more to wrap up. So the question would be how easy or difficult it is to secure business in the US or the UK for the Croatian company without having a physical presence in the market?
So I'll start out. You know, the internet has allowed the business to be done around the world without a physical presence, but a physical presence is always important. I'd say if you don't have somebody selling for you in the US, it'll be difficult. If you're looking to raise money in the US, I strongly encourage you to hire an investment banker or some type of investment professional. If you think you're going to go to the US and find who the investors are, you're not. You're going to find a couple. They may or may not be the right ones. They may or may not be priced appropriately. Hire a good professional, pay them well, have a good lawyer, and you'll get the right. There's lots of capital and investors in the United States.
I'd say in the UK, it's all about taking advantage of the infrastructure that we've got in place that I talked about before, the tech cities, the digital hubs, things like that. Trying to do it over the phone from Croatia is always going to be more difficult than engaging with a direct contact. And my advice as a civil servant, for what that's worth, is try to find somebody in the market with whom, in whom you have confidence, with whom you can do business. But I think probably this is a question for Tomislav, Alan, and Ivan. What was their experience in whichever markets they were going into, and how did they do it?
So I would. So we have a U.S. company, and we have 3 employees in that company, and I can only agree with Rob on the points of U.S. doesn't make much sense if you don't have physical presence there. And by this date, U.S. has been our largest territory. We are lucky enough to do R&D and some contracting work for a Department of Defense, and that would not be possible if we didn't have physical presence in the United States and some operations there. But how do you get to a point where you have remote operation in other markets? I think that's a very individual question and depends on type of company, type of business, and the maturity of your business. Like if you're a company that has a few hundred people employed, then you most likely have a legal department in the company. You have accounting and everything else, and I think things will go more easier. But if you're a small company with 20, 30, 40 people, then it becomes a bit more challenging. Orqe, we are lucky enough that our directors in our U.S. company are coming from defense background and investment background. So in that sense, we have a pretty good lineup in those people when it comes to doing work and running business in the United States.
Yeah, maybe I can. I mean, so I think the question basically here is, which is the basic question of business, is figuring out sales channels. So, I mean, sometimes the sales channel is like Ivan said, you need to have a guy that sells to the government, US government. He has to be in the US, obviously, they're not going to buy. Sometimes there's no need for it, like when, I don't know, like when we sell SaaS or something, we don't have no actual need to be anywhere physically. So it really depends on your business and where your sales channel is, and there's not a one answer to that. But that's kind of the whole point. Once you figure that out, all the other stuff is easier once you figure out the sales channel.
Yeah, it's just sales and production, and everything else is easy.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Just make it and then sell it, and then you the money to make more. Yeah, very simple.
And then you sell everything and you have more money. But you can only buy winery because you have...
You have the lock-in contract, and then which winery are you going to buy? It's a big problem.
Yeah, our time is really to wrap up. I have one excellent question for the end that I would like to ask to everybody. The question is, can we expect the Croatian startup scene, and not just startup scene, but IT scene in general, blossom with all those recent successes in a way that some other countries did when they have such a good examples? Like Skype in Estonia, now we have Infobip, now we have Nanobita, now we have Rimac, Infinum, really good stories. Are they going to change the climate in the country from your perspective and really make it the whole country blossom? So I don't know, Ivan, maybe you want to take first, or Tomislav?
that's already happening in like in different levels. You have more and more companies that are better than they were before. Like I remember, like I started 15 years ago and there was nothing like this back then. And right now there's more stuff happening, and like all this money is going to go somewhere, and it's probably going to go back into the tech sector, because where else would it go except wineries, of course. But I mean, that's the whole point. So the people that are working in these companies are living a better life, I would say, than they were before. So I think, I think we're on that path, and I think we just need to, like, all of us need to keep on digging, and we'll get to a better place. So yeah.
I cannot agree more with Tomislav. I think I'm gonna speak from more local perspective. When I say local, I'm gonna speak about the city of Osijek, where I'm living. This city is living IT life. I think they are just in the incubator that we have offices in. I think there are 30 or 40 companies with more than 300 employees, and they all work in IT, and they all have above average salaries. And I think we just need to keep up with the momentum that we are building by ourselves. And it's really rewarding to see that, a year ago, year and a half ago, we had 15 or 16 employees in the company, and we were like terrified with the fact that like 15 or 16 people are depending on what we do and what we work. And now we are like at 42, and I still have same terrifying experience when I think about all those people and all those families that we support with stuff that we do. But in essence, it's a very rewarding a process, and it's good to see that things that you do can affect larger perimeters are surrounding your company. And I will give you one example. So transporting high definition video with ultra low latency can enable a control of autonomous cars on large distances. And I was so happy to see that our local authorities took this point in one conversation that I had with them, and they put it into their regulation to allow autonomous cars to be tested, developed, and driven in city of Osijek. And I think, at least for me, this small point in our local ecosystem is really a good showcase that we are really changing the face of the ecosystems we're living in.
If I may add, I think that what we are seeing this year from the recent successes of the tech companies is just the tip of the iceberg, right? Because there is a lot of more coming, and it will be hopefully visible in the next couple of years, because for all those companies here, it took more than 10 years to do what's now all over the media, right? So I think that it will be a couple of interesting follow-ups and interesting stories in the next years.
Thank you. Andrew, want to close up?
You're asking the wrong guy for answers to those kinds of questions.
Yeah, but how do you see it as a foreigner? Like, do you see that the climate is changing? That
okay.
not in IT, but like in society in general? Do you think that the good success stories can actually change the course of a nation? Because, at least to our opinion, we're not in such a great path, and we see that there is some positive stories, and maybe we can all turn around and start to build a better society for everybody.
Okay, take your point, Davor, and I'm going to be undiplomatic because it's Friday evening after all. But the point that you just made there, we don't think we're on the right path. This is something after 4 years in Croatia, I think I've learned that Croatians often tend to think that they're not doing anything right and that everything's terrible. What I'm seeing, it's not just from tonight's teleconference, but from my engagement with guys like Tomislav, Alan, and Ivan, is that there's a formidable amount of talent and hunger, energy in this country for achieving success. And if you can just get the conditions right to allow people like these guys to succeed, and to celebrate their success, then there's no stopping what might be possible. So that's how I would leave it. You know, you guys just carry on doing what you're doing. Work has to go on about getting the business environment right, getting a predictable, foreseeable tax regime, getting a legal system that is smooth, efficient, and quick. All the other things that we've talked about, and then who knows what might happen.
Thank you. And last but not least, Robert.
Sure, thank you. I agree with what Andrew just said about all the things Croatia needs to do systemically, but I do think the successes build on each other. And it's great to see successful Croatians stay at home, build a company. You know, Mate Rimac has been offered to go all over the world. He wants to stay in Croatia and show Croatians that they can be successful. So I think guys like him, guys like the three of you who have built companies and stayed here and had successes, tell your story and encourage people to go out and take a chance and be successful.
Thank you. And I think it's time for us to wrap up. I'm really thrilled to have such a huge, important lineup tonight. Robert is leaving Croatia as ambassador soon, but I hope he'll come at least for the summers to visit us again. And in any case, he will be remembered. Double taxation, getting the visas out, that's something that like we dreamed like for 20 years or something, and now it's finally happening. So thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew, again for all the things that you're doing in Croatian society, because you're really, really visible with all the good stories. You're always coming around, and the 3D guys of you just keep on rocking. And Alan, see you in a winery again soon, but I hope to see you all back in IT business, and let's do some great stories again. Thank you everybody for the questions, and I hope to continue the CISEx Friday at least online when we cannot meet, and let's have some fun together. Thank you and goodbye.
Everyone.
Thanks, Davor.
Thanks.